Bitcoin compensation in the workplace is going to look a lot like email did in the late 90s. No one really understanding that within a very short period of time, it became almost impossible to conduct white-collar work or any type of work really without email. And I think Bitcoin is equally as sort of viral and essential. And the difference is we are seeing sort of an exponential adoption of the technology, but also this growing awareness around inflation and the erosion of purchasing power.
Hi everyone, Fraser Matthews, President and CEO of Netcoins, here with you today alongside Scott Dedels for another exciting big CEO interview series interview in partnership with our good friends over at Blockchain North. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it a lot, and we're really excited to learn a lot about yourself, your background, and Block Rewards today. But starting off, tell us, what is the biggest problem that Block Rewards is solving for Canadian employers and their employees today?
Thanks. Yeah, I think we solve an important problem for both of those groups. And for employers, we provide enterprise-grade software that enables companies an accessible way to think about including Bitcoin in their compensation and reward stack. And Bitcoin is an incredible performing asset. It's an emerging technology. It's something of great interest. And so this is a new way for companies to think about easing a foot into the world of paying people in Bitcoin or using Bitcoin as a reward. And for employees, there are Bitcoiners who would love to have it be easier to earn Bitcoin from their employer. I think then there's everyone else that can benefit from having exposure to Bitcoin in a way that is familiar to them with how they're already being paid. So we sort of put those two things together, and hopefully we're bringing something very important and new to the workplace by making Bitcoin available for everyone.
Block Rewards offers Bitcoin savings plans. They integrate with payroll systems. Tell us about how that works and why employers are adopting it.
Yeah, the concept of employer-sponsored savings plans is not new, and that was my background and inspiration for dreaming up a world where Bitcoin products could work the same way. So our system runs typically in concert with the company's payroll schedule, where employees have the opportunity to purchase Bitcoin with net pay right off their paycheck. And the program itself can be customized in whatever way an employer might want. And so typically, with most of our customers, we see the company getting involved to create a match savings plan, which would resemble the kinds of plans you're used to seeing with an RSP or a pension. The difference is that we're incorporating Bitcoin and doing it in a way that incents people to start thinking about the power of saving in Bitcoin and the ease of doing it through a deduction at source. It's always easiest when people have the ability to pay themselves first.
And Scott, you have a really unique background. Maybe tell us about your journey and how you got here.
Thanks. Yeah, I spent the majority of my working career in benefits and pension consulting and found Bitcoin by accident. It was 2020, and we were all trying to understand how the unprecedented sort of government creation of money was going to help the country get through what was a very unique and a time that nobody had been through something like that before. And it was during that time that I started to really study the history of money, the creation of money, economics, because I was really trying to understand what all of this expansion of the money supply was going to mean for the fixed income markets, really. And from there, I kind of fell backwards into Bitcoin and immediately started dreaming about Bitcoin products with the employer in mind, using the power of Bitcoin as a financial tool to transform the way their workplace thinks about recruitment and retention. I think that Bitcoin is something that everybody should own, everyone should understand. And I think we're at the early stages of this becoming a really normal thing. And we exist to help accelerate that.
Tell us what the biggest barrier employers face when offering Bitcoin as compensation.
I think that, again, there's kind of two ways to view this question, and it depends a lot on the employer's understanding of Bitcoin itself. So where we find executives or key people in a company that understand the need for Bitcoin or the importance in helping others to understand it, the biggest barrier are the tools that would make it feasible for them, and that's where we really feel we have a unique value proposition. I think that the opposite is true. If the company yet hasn't understood Bitcoin, the technology, the innovation, the financial freedom that it can offer, then we also need to sort of work on the Bitcoin education piece as we think about how we can help prospective customers.
And what's an insight that you have from clients who have responded to the Bitcoin savings plan? What are they saying in the market?
Unanimous satisfaction. The cool thing about our products, because they really cut out the noise. It's Bitcoin only. And the great thing about Bitcoin is that you don't need to wait 10 years for it to show you the power of a asset that has a compound annual growth rate of 30, 40, 50%. So we have customers who've been running Bitcoin savings plans for 2 years. And in that time, an employee might have saved 10,000 Canadian dollars. And the cash value of that amount today could be $40,000 or $50,000, depending on when they started saving. So that there really isn't another financial vehicle or instrument that an employer could offer that has the potential or capacity to deliver what really is life-changing, a financial win for their staff, and on a very relatively short period of time.
And how do you focus in when you're working with organizations that maybe aren't as familiar with Bitcoin? Maybe the stakeholders haven't heard so much about Bitcoin, why it matters, why it's important now. How do you go and pitch them?
Great question. We are developing a very robust employee education journey that is interactive and engaging. And this goes back to my history in rolling out group retirement plans to companies at scale. And so my personal belief is that the largest sort of barrier for entry of someone wanting to get involved with Bitcoin is education. And I think this is equally true with decision makers. And so we also have a specific stream of educational content that is geared towards executives to help them understand, not only why this is important for the business, but how it could really transform their efforts to, recruit and retain key people, which is why all these different benefits that exist and sit on top of salaries have budgets, and why we do all this stuff.
And Scott, how do you see the role of Bitcoin employee compensation evolving over the next few years?
Personally, I think that Bitcoin compensation in the workplace is going to look a lot like email did in the late 90s. And there would have been a time for those of us who are old enough to remember where email itself, it wasn't obvious how broad the application was going to be. It would have been email systems being rolled out in companies and no one really understanding that within a very short period of time, became almost impossible to conduct white collar work or any type of work really without email. And I think Bitcoin is equally as sort of viral and essential. And the difference is that we are seeing sort of an exponential adoption of the technology, but also this growing awareness around inflation and the erosion of purchasing power. And I think that we've really just been put into a position where the rules of money have changed and companies are going to be forced to consider new ideas to stay competitive and remain ahead. And so I think that we really are entering into a period of time where it may seem like it's early now, but just as was true for internet technology, these things change really quickly in hindsight. And I think we will view this as the 2020s, the late half of the 2020s, as the time where people really got comfortable with the idea of earning Bitcoin being normal.
What does wider adoption of Bitcoin, payroll services, employee benefit plans mean for North American workers and their businesses?
I mean, I think for workers, it means easier access to savings tools that actually work. And, like one perfect example, I think, is that in the future, people will think about saving for their first home by saving in Bitcoin and actually just selecting a better savings tool to help them accomplish their financial goals. And I think that the same is true equally for companies that are already directing time and resources to trying to solve this problem for their employees, and just really not understanding now that there is a better instrument to make this possible. And so as long as Bitcoin continues to behave the way we're used to it behaving, and I think that there's going to be a growing demand for unprintable money as governments continue to print and expand the supply of government money. This is something that is there's a market fit both for the employer and the employee for people to understand how Bitcoin can make both of their lives easier.
Great answer. Scott, by the end of 2026, block rewards will be known for blank.
We're going to be a household name that's synonymous for people being paid in Bitcoin.
And we're excited here at Netcoins. We're excited to have come across you during this past year and working together with you heading into 2026. Scott, where can we follow your progress and that of Block Rewards?
Yeah, and we're equally excited, Fraser. And thanks for having me here to share some of our developments. It's blockrewards.ca for now. We are in the process of transitioning to blockrewards.com, and that would be the best place to find us.
Scott Dedels, thanks for joining us.
Thanks again.